Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Thursday, the 29th day of January. And yesterday we were telling you about the law of Mipnei Seva Takum, about how you have to stand up and give honor when an elderly person walks by you. And we said yesterday that the full halacha is to stand up in full for them. Stand up all the way. And we defined generally, according to most halachic opinions, that elderly person as someone who's 70 years old or older. But you might sometimes see people who don't stand up all the way, and they just kind of like hunch out of their seat for a little bit, and they don't give the full standing mipnei seva takum honor to an elderly person when they walk by. And you might wonder, well, where does that come from? Well, today I'm going to read to you a short list of exceptions where you don't have to give the full stand-up honor all the way standing up for this honorable elderly person that walked by you, or just any elderly person that walked by you. And sometimes when you see people rising only partly, like just out of their chair like that a little bit, they're doing it possibly because they're following this law. They think that they fall under one of the exceptions. I'm going to read you the exceptions just a minute, but I want you to know that some people are using this law even when they aren't officially in the exception category. But this is the official exception category. Let's say the person who's rising for the elderly person, there's A and B. And A, the elderly person, is about 80 years old, and the person who's supposed to rise for him is 75 years old. So whenever the person who's standing up for A, the elderly person, is himself over the age of 70, then he's not fully commanded to stand up all the way, because he too is an elderly person. And that's why you will sometimes see people just doing the halfway stand up, because he's 75 and the guy he's standing up for is 80, so he only rises halfway. That is a notable exception of where you don't have to stand all the way physically tall to honor an elderly person. Also, sometimes the person who only rises halfway might not be rising all the way for the elderly person, and that's because the person who's rising is a very big Talmud Chacham, a very big wise Torah scholar, and doesn't have to give or take from his energy and time and give the full honor to that elderly person, because he himself is due a tremendous amount of honor, because he's a giant Talmud Chacham, a Torah student. So that's why you will sometimes see people using that notable exception. They won't be standing up all the way, but just nodding forward a little bit, because they are, the rising person is a great Talmud Chacham. Sometimes it's not appropriate for you to stand up all the way and go away from what you're doing for 5 or 10 seconds, because you're in the middle of working and your boss doesn't want you stopping your work to just get up and rise for the elderly person that walked by. In that situation, you would just do a quick rise out of your chair, only partially. Sometimes the reason you're allowed to stay partially seated and not rise all the way in honor of the elderly person who's walking by is because the elderly person is telling you, sit, 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 you don't have to stand up for me. If he really means that and feels it and believes it and says it to you strongly, then that's okay, then you can just rise a little bit. Sometimes the younger person doesn't have to rise all the way for the person he's honoring, because the younger person is davening, and it may disturb his kavanah, his intention in his davening, by having to stand up all the way for the elderly person that walked by. So again, that's one of the exceptions, and in that circumstance you would be allowed to just rise out of your seat a tiny bit. Sometimes the younger person is not feeling well, and they don't have to stand up all the way because they're not feeling so great. That would be a notable exception, where you could just rise like halfway. And also, if the person who's supposed to be standing up is sitting Shiva, they're actually in their morning time, the serious morning time of the sadness of having lost a relative, so that person also would not have to rise all the way in those circumstances. But in all other normal circumstances, the young person should rise all the way when an elderly person over age 70 walks by you, because we give that kind of honor to an elderly person just for them having experienced much in life that you haven't experienced yet. Hope that all makes sense. Hope it's clear. Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more. Bye.